1. The Crow and Advice from the Dove. The crow and the dove were good friends, living together in a forest. Feeling disliked by everyone, the crow decided to leave. When it went to say goodbye to the dove, the crow was sad and said, "No one here likes me. They hate my call. I really can't stay any longer, although I don't want to leave at all." The dove thought for a moment and then said, "If you don't change your call, you'll be unwelcome no matter where you go." Moral: there's a great saying, if you always blame others, you'll never understand. If you look at yourself, things will become clear. A sign of maturity is always taking full responsibility for oneself. Accepting your own faults and not avoiding them when you make mistakes is the way to truly improve yourself. 2. Staying calm in the face of displeasure. There was an old man who enjoyed reading newspapers, and he would visit the nearest store daily to buy one. The store clerk, noticing that the man only bought newspapers, looked down on him and was always arrogant and rude. A friend of the old man couldn't understand and asked, "He treats you like that. Why don't you buy your newspaper somewhere else?" The old man smiled and replied, "If I were to hold a grudge against that young man and go elsewhere, I would have to travel more, wasting not only my time but also adding hassle. Moreover, his lack of manners and rudeness is his problem. Why should I change my attitude because of someone like that?" Meaning, we can't control other people's attitudes, but we can decide on our own. Holding grudges against others means using their mistakes to punish ourselves. 3. When the horse lost its freedom. Once upon a time, there was a horse that lived in the meadow. Every day, it enjoyed lush, fresh grass and led a very happy and comfortable life. One day, a deer appeared. The horse was very angry, feeling that the deer had invaded its territory and intruded upon its personal space. So the horse asked a human for help to drive the deer away. The human said that if the horse agreed to wear a bridle and allow the human to ride on its back, he would bring out the most effective weapon to chase the deer away. The horse happily agreed. Afterwards, as the man rode the horse and chased the deer away, the horse realized that it had become a slave to the human. Moral: in life, the foolish try to pull each other down, while the wise attempt to lift each other up. People who are narrow-minded and materialistic, unable to tolerate others, will ultimately only face the consequences themselves, making their path forward increasingly narrow. If we can be more forgiving and see things in a broader perspective, we can foster better relationships. 4. Holding hands. Across the bridge. One day, two close friends crossed a dangerous iron bridge together. They held each other's hand tightly, while using the other hand to grip the bridge's railing, slowly moving forward step by step. Seeing how easily they crossed the bridge, someone asked, "How did you two manage that? You know, the terrain here is treacherous and the sound of the water is as loud as thunder. Almost no one can make it across." Both were surprised, and one of them said, "I can't see, so I don't know what the terrain is like." The other said, "I can't hear, so I don't know what the sound of the water is like." It turns out that those who fell into the gorge were the ones with sharp eyes and keen ears. Meaning, in dealing with others, the most frightening thing is to be distracted and chaotic in thought, as it can disrupt your actions and hinder achieving great things. Only when your mind is stable and not distracted by the surroundings, focusing solely on one thing, can you truly achieve great things. 5. The donkey's escape. A farmer was leading his donkey to the market when, unfortunately, the donkey fell into a well. The farmer was very worried and tried everything he could think of to rescue the donkey, but nothing worked. Hearing the donkey's desperate cries from the bottom of the well, and thinking about how the donkey would starve to death, the farmer was heartbroken. Unable to bear the thought of his beloved donkey suffering like this, he thought it would be kinder to bury the donkey alive to end its misery quickly. So he grabbed a shovel and began to fill in the well. However, to the farmer's surprise, the donkey shook off the dirt from its back and stepped on the pile of soil being dumped into the well. By doing so, the donkey gradually climbed closer to the top of the well. Eventually, thanks to the mound of soil, the donkey was saved. Moral: life isn't always smooth sailing. Everyone faces ups and downs. In moments of despair, if you never give up, you'll find a turning point. Every hardship can eventually become a stepping stone in your journey, helping you climb faster and reach higher. 6. The Wild Dog and the Mirror. A wild dog accidentally wandered into a large room lined with mirrors. Startled to see so many dogs appear around him, the wild dog panicked. He stared fiercely at them, not realizing that they were also staring back just as fiercely. Angry, the dog barked, "Don't think you can defeat me just because you're many. I'm a battle-hardened veteran." At that moment, the dogs in the mirrors also appeared to be laughing, showing their shiny teeth. Terrified, the wild dog charged at one of the mirrors and smashed it, causing the glass to shatter. His head began to bleed profusely. Moral: life is like a mirror. You get back what you give to others. To receive something, you must first give. If you offer kindness, you will receive sincerity. If you are warm to others, you will get warmth in return. If you always speak kindly, you will earn others' admiration. 7. Lessons from the hazelnut. A child saw a jar full of hazelnuts. Wanting to eat them, the child put their hand into the jar. The child grabbed a large handful, but then discovered that the jar's opening was too small to pull their hand out without getting stuck. In frustration, the child started to cry. A passerby noticed this and said to the child, "You only need to take less than half, and then you can easily remove your hand. Learn to be content." Meaning: life isn't about having too little, but often about wanting too much. If you constantly let your desires grow, they will control you and you'll eventually find yourself stuck. Chasing minor gains can lead to greater losses. Only by letting go of greed can you truly gain what you want. By controlling our desires, we can live a relaxed and autonomous life. Sometimes, our lack of satisfaction comes not from a lack of capability, but from being stuck in our old ways and lacking breakthroughs. Life is a continuous process of growth and awakening. Many great life principles that inspire us can be reflected in the smallest and most ordinary aspects of life. With these stories, it is hoped that they can serve as beacons guiding you on your path to happiness. 8. A Sweet Gift. I found an empty bench in the park, nestled under the slender willow trees, to quietly reflect on life and how the world seemed to be overwhelming me. Just when I thought things couldn't get more challenging, a little boy ran up breathlessly from playing, tilted his head and said, "Look what I found." In his hand was a wilted flower, its petals crumpled from lack of water and sunlight. To quickly dismiss him and get back to my thoughts, I forced a smile and waved him off. Instead of leaving, he sat next to me, brought the flower to his nose, and joyfully exclaimed, "It smells wonderful. It must have been a beautiful flower. I picked it for you." The flower was fading and nearly dry, its colors a blurred mix of red, yellow, and orange. Knowing he wouldn't leave me alone otherwise, I reached out to take the flower, mumbling, "Okay, give it here." But instead of placing it in my hand, he left it hanging in the air unknowingly. That's when I realized the boy was blind. My voice trembled as I thanked him. He smiled and went back to his play, unaware of the impact he had on me. Sitting quietly, I wondered how this blind boy noticed a troubled woman under a tree, how he sensed the despair I was feeling. Maybe his heart gave him a true vision. Through the eyes of a blind child, I finally saw that the real difficulties lay not in the world but within myself. In all the misery I created, I was the one who was truly blind. I resolved to see the world for its real beauty and to cherish every moment of life. Then I brought the flower to my nose and savored the sweet fragrance of a simple rose.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
9. Why wait? Why wait for a smile to feel truly beautiful? Why wait until you're lonely to realize the value of a friend? Why wait to be loved to start loving someone? Why wait for a good job to begin working? Why wait until you have a lot to share just a little? Why wait for a failure to remember a piece of advice? Why wait for pain to recall a wish? Why wait for free time to start serving others? Hey, why wait? You never know how long you'll have to. 10. Best friend. The horror was overwhelming for a World War I soldier as he saw his best friend fall on the battlefield. Trapped in a trench with shells flying overhead, the soldier asked his commanding officer for permission to go out into the no man's land between the trenches to retrieve his wounded comrade. The commanding officer said, "You can go, but I don't think it will be worth it. Your friend might already be dead and you could lose your life too." Ignoring the officer's words, the soldier went anyway. Miraculously, he managed to reach his friend, hoisted him onto his shoulders, and brought him back to their trench. As both men tumbled down into the trench, the officer checked the wounded soldier and looked at the friend sympathetically. "I told you it wouldn't be worth it," the officer said. "Your friend is dead, and you are seriously injured." The soldier replied, "Even so, it was worth it, sir." "What do you mean it was worth it? Your friend is dead." "Sir, it was worth it because when I reached him, he was still alive, and I was so glad to hear him say, 'Jim, I knew you would come for me.'" In life, whether something is worth doing depends on how we see it. Be brave and follow your heart so that you won't regret not doing something later. Hopefully, each of us will be surrounded by such true friends. 11. A remedy for grief. This story is about a woman who recently lost her son. In her overwhelming grief, she sought the wisdom of a sage. Desperately, the mother asked, "Is there a prayer or a spell that you know of that can bring my son back to life?" Instead of dismissing her or advising her to find peace, the sage replied, "Bring me a mustard seed from a family that has never known sorrow. It will help alleviate your pain." Grateful, the woman immediately set out in search of this magical seed. Her first stop was a large, luxurious house. She knocked and asked, "I'm looking for a mustard seed from a home that has never experienced sorrow. Is this the place?" They told her she was mistaken, sharing their own tragic stories with her. The woman stayed a while to comfort them. Then she continued her quest for the happiest family. Yet, everywhere she went, from grand houses to humble shacks, she was met with tales of sadness. She became more involved and eager to help, sharing in others' misfortunes, to the extent that she eventually forgot her initial question about the magical mustard seed. Unknowingly, this very search had eased her previous burden of pain. 12. Coming home. A soldier returns home to reunite with his family after years of serving overseas. From San Francisco, he calls to check in with his family. "Mom and Dad, I'm coming home, but there's something I need to ask. I want to bring a friend home with me." "Oh, sure, son. We'd love to welcome your friend. But you should know he was severely injured in the war. He lost an arm and both legs. He has nowhere else to go, so I want him to come live with us." "We're sorry to hear that. Perhaps we can help him find a place to stay." "Oh no, I want him to stay with us." "Son, you don't realize what you're asking. A disabled person like that would be a burden on us. We have our own lives to lead. and we can't let something like this interfere. It's best if you just come home and forget about this guy. He'll probably figure out how to take care of himself soon enough." After hearing this, the son hangs up. A few days later, they get a shocking phone call from the San Francisco police, informing them that their son has died after falling from a high-rise building. The police believe it was suicide. Heartbroken, the parents hurriedly fly to San Francisco and are taken to the city morgue to identify their son. They recognize him instantly, but are horrified to realize something else at the same time. Their son had only one arm and one leg. 13. The life odometer. Some people say life is like a highway. That's a good way to think about life. I imagine myself driving down my life's road at 60 miles per hour, 1 mile for each minute. I guess I've been on this highway for about 12,500,000 minutes, which means my odometer would read 12,500,000 miles. I wonder how many miles I spent just looking at the road or out the window. I wonder how many miles I spent checking the rearview mirror, not caring about my speed. I wonder how many miles I drove through roundabouts and how many times I ignored the road signs, even though they were always there. I wonder how many miles I couldn't steer because I was too drunk and how many accidents I caused. I wonder how many miles I felt sorry for myself or how many miles I spent singing my favorite songs on the radio. I wonder how many miles I drove for myself and how many miles I drove for someone I care about. I wonder how many times I passed someone on my way without stopping to help them. I wonder how many miles I buckled up and how many miles I drove with my hands off the steering wheel. I wonder how many miles I drove alone and how many miles I spent laughing loudly with friends and family in the back seat. I wonder how many more miles I will drive before I know where I'm going. 14. Bend, but don't break. One of my fondest childhood memories is walking along and sitting by the riverbank. It was a place where I could enjoy peace and quiet, watching the still waters flow, hearing birds sing and leaves rustling. There, I also watched bamboo bend low under the wind and then straighten back up when the wind calmed. Thinking about how resilient bamboo is as it bends and returns to its original position, I reflect on human adaptability. Adaptability means being able to bounce back from a shock, sadness, or any condition that has stretched our emotions to their limits. Have you ever felt like you were almost knocked down, like you were about to break? Be thankful that you're still here to talk about that experience. During those times, you might feel an overwhelming mix of emotions threatening your well-being. You feel emotionally drained, mentally exhausted, and physically uncomfortable. Life is a mixture of beautiful and dark moments, times of joy and times of sorrow. Future hardships might almost break you, but try to bend and withstand them without breaking. Strive not to let circumstances defeat you. A little bit of hope can help you overcome tough challenges. With hope for a brighter tomorrow or a better future, things might not seem so bad. The challenge will become easier to face, and the end result will be worth it. If life becomes tough and you're on the verge of breaking, show your adaptability. Like the bamboo, bend but do not break. 15. The lesson of the coffee cups. Understanding what truly matters in life. A group of successful friends decided to visit their old teacher. After catching up for a bit, they began to share and complain about the pressures they faced in their jobs and lives. Listening to this, the teacher went into the kitchen and came back with some coffee for his former students. He brought out many different types of cups: porcelain, plastic, glass, crystal, some plain-looking, some expensive, and some extremely finely made. The teacher told the successful people to choose a cup and pour themselves some coffee. After everyone had picked a cup and filled it with coffee, the respected teacher began to explain. If you notice, everyone chose the expensive cups, and no one wanted the cheap plastic ones. You might think it's normal because everyone wants the best for themselves, but this is exactly what causes all the problems in your lives. The cup does not affect the quality of the coffee. All you need is the coffee, not the cup. Yet, you all focus on finding the best cups and then look over to see if someone else's cup is better than yours. Think about this. Life is the coffee, while jobs, money, and social status are the cups. These cups do not define nor change the quality of our lives. Sometimes, by focusing only on the cups, we fail to enjoy our life. What God gave us is the coffee, not the cups. So, enjoy your coffee and live a beautiful life. 16. A spot reserved for love. My dad used to joke with me, "Remember to save a spot at the table for me after I'm gone." And I would reply, "Only the good die young. I might go before you, and then you'll have to save a spot for me." Eventually, my father passed away. I kept that promise for many years. Every day, I kept an empty chair at the table where he used to sit. Some people found it odd. An empty spot like that will just make everyone remember him and feel sadder. At first, that was true, but time has a way of turning pain into something useful. I read in a book that in ancient tradition during Christmas, you should leave an empty spot at your dining table so the family might invite someone poor who has nowhere to eat. Keeping an empty spot at the table makes any guest feel more welcome and at ease. The empty spot at the table isn't just for remembering. It's left open to be filled. If you don't have a guest on Christmas, be thankful because the memories are still there in that empty spot. And it's wonderful if someone does come to fill it. Then it's filled with your openness and warmth. I hope you always have such an empty spot in your life and in your heart, reserved for memories, and then for love to land and stay forever. 17. The magical phrase. There was a wise man who, realizing his time was coming to an end, called his children to his bedside. He pointed to his vast library and said, "Now I will reveal a secret to you. This great library was a gift from a saint who admired my dedication to study despite our family's poverty. Along with this invaluable gift," he said, "in this endless library there is a most precious book. Within that book there is a most precious page, and on that page there is a magical phrase. Whoever reads this phrase will become the wisest of the wise." "Which book is it, Father?" his eldest son quickly asked. "I wanted to ask the saint the same question," the father replied, "but he vanished before I could." After a brief pause, the father used his last bit of strength to say, "I have spent my life reading, but I have yet to find that precious book. You have your whole lives ahead of you, my children. Focus on your reading. I hope that you will be luckier than I was and find that sacred phrase." Following their father's advice, the wise man's children diligently read day after day. They read endlessly, but since the library seemed infinite, they never found that precious book. However, through the knowledge they gained over the years, they became respected scholars. 18. Duty and love. Duty might get someone to build a house, but only love can turn that house into a home. Duty might make dinner, but love adds the spice that makes the meal taste better. Duty writes many letters, but love includes a funny story or a doodle of a candy. Duty can be frustrating if one's efforts go unnoticed, but love makes us laugh more and feel appreciated right in what we do. Duty might mix a glass of milk, but love adds a little sweetness to it. Duty demands sacrifice, but love brings peace. Duty obliges us to act and to know, but love helps us appreciate what we have, will have, and are about to have. 19. Have you ever noticed that you miss someone the most when they're right beside you, but they're not yours? Have you ever noticed that talking about something and later wishing you hadn't said it, and not saying anything only to wish later that you had, can both be really painful? Have you ever noticed that the most important things are often the hardest to say? Have you ever been afraid to tell someone you love them? If you tell them, they might hurt you. But if you don't say it, you might hurt them. Have you ever been hesitant to care too much for someone simply because you fear they might not care back just as much or at all? Have you ever thought that life is full of risks and requires leaps of faith? Don't be someone who always has to look back and wonder what could have been or what you shouldn't have done, because nothing can wait for you forever.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
20. The Tale of the Candle. One night there was a power outage and a candle was placed in the middle of the room. Someone lit the candle and it shone brightly. The candle was thrilled to realize that its small flame brought light to the entire room. Everyone admired it. Wow, the candle is so bright, we're lucky, or else we wouldn't be able to see anything. Hearing this, the candle joyfully pushed back the darkness around it. However, the hot wax began to drip and trail down the candle's side. The candle noticed it was getting shorter and shorter. When only half was left, the candle panicked. Oh no, if I keep burning like this, I'll soon burn out. Why should I have to suffer this fate? Then, it used a passing breeze to snuff itself out suddenly. A wisp of smoke rose and the candle became silent. The people in the room quickly said, "The candle's out, it's so dark now, what do we do?" The candle smiled smugly, proud of its importance. But suddenly, someone suggested, "The candle can easily be blown out by the wind. Let me find an oil lamp." The oil lamp was lit, and the half-burnt candle was put away in a drawer. The candle felt very sad. From now on, it would lie in the drawer, rarely having a chance to shine again. The candle then realized that its joy was in shining for others, even if it could only burn with a small flame and would eventually melt away. Because it was, after all, a candle. 21. Lessons learned: how children absorb the world around them. 1. Kids who grow up around criticism learn to criticize. 2. Kids who grow up in a hostile environment often fight. 3. Kids who grow up in fear learn to be scared. 4. Kids who grow up in pain learn empathy. 5. Kids who grow up in a jealous environment learn ambition. 6. Kids who grow up in a tolerant environment learn patience. 7. Kids who grow up with encouragement learn to trust. 8. Kids who grow up with timely praise learn to appreciate what's around them. 9. Kids who grow up with pride learn to strive. 10. Kids who grow up sharing learn to be generous. 11. Kids who grow up with honesty and fairness learn about truth and justice. 12. Kids who grow up happy learn that the world is a good place to live. 22. The Candle of Hope. There was a man who was very poor, and he made his living by making and selling candles. However, hardly anyone bought his candles. He didn't socialize much and became more and more reclusive as time went on. Every evening he would shut his door, turn off the lights, confine himself at home, and silently lament his fate. Eventually, he became desperate. He thought that perhaps it would be better to end his life. One evening, he decided to act on this thought. Suddenly, he heard a voice. "You make candles. Why not light one for yourself?" Startled, he asked, "Who's there?" "I am a spirit," the voice replied. "If you wish, I can light a candle of hope for you. This candle could bring you happiness." He hesitated, but eventually agreed. He began to feel more optimistic about life. He spent his days caring for that candle, making sure it kept burning. However, as all candles do, it eventually started to burn out. Day by day, his love for life diminished again, and he found himself feeling weary and disillusioned with living like this. Once more, he shut himself away at home, crying. Of course, the mysterious spirit spoke again. "Why do you weep?" it asked. "You did not use the candle to light others within you. That is your own doing." 23. The Bowl of Light. The story goes that each child at birth is given a perfect bowl of light. If you take care of it, that bowl can grow into strength and you'll be able to do many useful things. However, if you feel envy, anger, or fear, you are essentially dropping a rock into your bowl. When that happens, a bit of the light gets pushed out because light and rocks can't share the same space. If you keep putting rocks in the bowl, more light will be pushed out and eventually you might turn into a rock yourself. A rock doesn't grow, nor can it move. There might come a time when you get tired of being a rock. Then, you have one option left: to turn the bowl upside down, let the rocks fall out, and allow the light to grow anew. There's a saying, "Never give to others what you wouldn't want them to give to you." If you make mistakes, you slowly lose the gift you were given at birth, gradually turning into someone else. At some point, you will awaken and remember that the light is always before you. It's never too late to start afresh, so be brave and begin again. 24. Obstacle. Once upon a time, a king wanted to test his people. He dressed in ordinary clothes and ventured far beyond the palace walls. He placed a large rock in the middle of a busy road, not to force his citizens to move it, but to see how they would naturally react to unexpected obstacles they encountered along their way. After placing the rock, the king hid nearby, observing. Many people who looked wealthy and refined passed by. They complained to each other about the rock blocking their path, calling it a nuisance. Some even cursed the king for not keeping the roads clear. But clearly, everyone just ignored the rock, preferring to walk around it rather than remove it from the way. Then, a poor farmer returning from the market with a basket full of vegetables came along. Seeing the rock, he set down his basket and tried to push the rock aside. Passers-by laughed at him, calling him a fool. No one stopped to help. After much effort, the farmer finally succeeded. When he moved the rock, he found a bag on the ground where the rock had been. Inside the bag was a lot of money because the farmer had learned something that many others had not. Every obstacle hides an opportunity. 25. 10 people to remember in your life. 1. When you find someone you truly love, take the chance to become their partner because if they leave, it might be too late. 2. When you meet a trustworthy friend, maintain a good relationship with them as finding a soulmate isn't easy in life. 3. When you meet someone who has helped you, remember to show gratitude because they have made a difference in your life. 4. When you meet someone who has loved you, smile and appreciate them for helping you understand more about love. 5. When you meet someone who has disliked you, offer a polite smile because they have made you stronger. 6. When you meet someone who has betrayed you, talk to them because without their actions, you wouldn't know much about the world today. 7. When you meet someone you used to love, wish them happiness because you once hoped for their joy and well-being. 8. When you meet someone who quickly passed through your life, thank them for being a part of your life as they add to its richness and diversity. 9. When you meet someone who misunderstood you, take the chance to clear up the misunderstanding, as you might only get one opportunity to explain yourself. 10. And thank your current partner for loving you and being happy with you. 26. Waiting for the rabbit named Love. Every day I sit under a large tree, waiting for a rabbit named Love. I heard someone saw it run by here once. The tree keeps growing taller, its branches spreading wide, but my wish remains the same. One day, a deer named Innocence passed by, and we chatted for a while. After it left, a dove named Joy flew by. We danced and sang together before it flew off into the blue sky. A dog named Loyalty came by next. We played chess, and then it too went on its way. Also, a sparrow named Romance, a fox named Enchantment, and an antelope named Gentleness visited. We all had pleasant conversations before they departed. I kept waiting for the rabbit, but it never seemed to appear. Finally, a squirrel named Hope brought me news about the rabbit Love. It said, "Love has passed by here many times." I replied, "That can't be true. I've been waiting right here." The squirrel explained that while I was talking to innocence, joy, loyalty, romance, enchantment, and gentleness, Love was also right beside me, but I never noticed it. 27. Why should we forgive others? What is forgiveness? Is it just saying the words, or is it about letting go of grudges deep within ourselves? Consider the story below. As children, we were often forced to forgive others' mistakes. If one child took another's toy, parents would insist on apologies and forgiveness. This apology was supposed to represent forgiveness, yet feelings of resentment might still linger. As adults, no one reminds us to do this. Hearing apologies becomes rare, and our lives slowly lack sincerity and forgiveness, making us more closed off and resentful. The following story illustrates that holding on to grudges is toxic, and that forgiveness is the ultimate remedy for happiness. It's the story of the potato sack. One day, our teacher asked us to bring a clean plastic bag and a sack of potatoes to class. Every time we refused to forgive someone, we were to write their name and the date on a potato and put it in our bag. Soon, the bags got heavier. We had to carry this bag everywhere at all times, whether we were sleeping or working. The inconvenience of carrying a bag full of potatoes made us feel the emotional weight we were carrying. Over time, the potatoes began to rot and turned into a slimy mess, and we didn't want to carry it anymore. Forgiveness does not mean holding on to grievances, pain, and dissatisfaction. Doing so means you are just suppressing your pain. It keeps you focused on unhappy memories and wounds, ignoring the possibility of a brighter outlook. Therefore, forgiveness primarily involves letting go of your own negativity. You must be forgiving toward yourself to extend that grace to others. We often think that forgiving others is beneficial for those forgiven, almost as if allowing them to shake off their burdens. In reality, forgiveness is a gift to yourself. It means leaving the past behind and focusing on the present and future. Anger and resentment only cause more suffering and waste time, preventing the flourishing of your thoughts. Strong individuals know how to forgive. Being forgiving toward others means accepting your own flaws and forgiving others' mistakes. Instead of continually blaming fate, complaining about life, or resenting others, spend time doing what you love, with people you cherish, exploring new places. Wouldn't that make life easier and more beautiful? Life is short, so learn to forgive others, which is also a way of forgiving yourself. 28. Yes, you can. After a car accident resulted in 16 surgeries, Mitchell was left with burns over 60% of his body. He couldn't lift a spoon, dial a phone, or enter the bathroom without assistance. But Mitchell, a former Navy sailor, never believed he was defeated. "I have to take charge of my ship," he said. "It's my responsibility. It's about my success or failure. This is just a new starting point for me." 6 months later, he was flying planes. Mitchell bought a large house in Colorado, some land, an airplane, and a bar. He then partnered with 2 friends to start a pottery company in Vermont, becoming the second largest employer there. 4 years after the car accident, the plane Mitchell was piloting crashed on the runway during takeoff, breaking 12 of his vertebrae and paralyzing him from the waist down. "I don't understand what the heck happened. What did I do to deserve this?" Yet, undeterred, Mitchell worked tirelessly to regain as much independence as possible. He was elected mayor of Crested Butte, Colorado, to fight against the threat of pollution from a nearby mining operation. He even ran for Congress, turning his rugged appearance into a strength with the slogan, "Not just another pretty face." Despite his disfigured appearance and physical limitations, Mitchell kept active, fell in love, got married, earned a master's degree in social work, continued flying, actively campaigned for environmental protection, and spoke publicly. His resilience and positive spirit landed him appearances on TV shows like The Today Show and Good Morning America. Many articles about him were published in magazines like Parade, Times, The New York Times. "Before the accident, I could do 10,000 things. Now I can do 9,000. Should I focus on the 1,000 I lost or the 9,000 I still have? I know what I need to do. I always tell people that fate hit me twice, but I didn't use that as an excuse to give up. These painful experiences can be seen from a new perspective. All things considered, it's not too bad. Remember, what matters is not what happens to you, but what you do afterward."
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
29. The Greatest Teacher. This story happened many years ago in a small town in the United States. Miss Thompson was teaching at the local elementary school. On the first day of the new school year, she stood in front of her fifth-grade class and declared that she loved all her students equally. However, she knew this wasn't entirely true because she had already noticed Teddy Stoddard at the front desk. From the previous year, she remembered Teddy as unkind to his classmates, often disheveled and generally quite dirty. Teddy seems difficult, she thought. Furthermore, Miss Thompson had marked Teddy's file with a big red F for failure at the start of the year, a common practice where teachers reviewed each student's past performance. When she finally looked at Teddy's file, she was surprised by what she found. His first-grade teacher had written, "Teddy is a bright, cheerful child who does well in school. He brings joy to those around him." His second-grade teacher noted, "Teddy is an excellent student loved by his peers, but he's struggling because his mother is very ill, and life at home is a battle." His third-grade teacher mentioned, "His mother's death has been hard on him. He tries to learn, but his father is not supportive, which could affect him if not helped." His fourth-grade teacher observed, "Teddy seems detached and uninterested in school. He doesn't have many friends and sometimes falls asleep in class." Realizing the situation, Miss Thompson felt ashamed of her initial judgment. She felt even worse when, during Christmas, all the students brought beautifully wrapped gifts except for Teddy. His gift was clumsily wrapped using a faded brown grocery bag. Opening it in front of the class, some students laughed when they saw an old fake diamond bracelet with missing stones and a bottle of perfume nearly empty. Miss Thompson quickly silenced the laughter by admiring the bracelet, putting it on, and spraying some perfume on her neck. At the end of that day, Teddy stayed behind to say, "Miss Thompson, today you smelled like my mother used to." After he left, Miss Thompson cried for an hour. From that day, she took special care of Teddy. Whenever she helped him with his work, his demeanor brightened. Encouragement from Miss Thompson saw Teddy improve rapidly. By the end of the year, he had become the top student in the class, contradicting her initial statement about treating all students equally. Teddy had become her favorite. A year later, she found a note from Teddy slipped under her door saying, "You are the best teacher I've ever had." 6 years later, another note arrived saying he had graduated high school third in his class and that she was still the best teacher he ever had. 4 years on, another letter came. Despite tough times that almost defeated him, he graduated college with top honors, still claiming she was his most beloved teacher. 4 more years passed, and she received another letter informing her of Teddy achieving his doctorate and planning further study. "You are still the best teacher of my life," he wrote, now signing as Dr. Theodore F. Stoddard. The story didn't end there. Another letter arrived announcing Teddy's upcoming wedding. He asked Miss Thompson to attend and sit where his mother would have sat because his father had passed away a few years ago. What do you think happened next? On that day, she wore the fake diamond bracelet Teddy gave her years before and used the perfume he had described as his mother's. They embraced joyfully at the wedding, and Professor Stoddard whispered to Miss Thompson, "Thank you for believing in me. Thanks for making me feel important and giving me the confidence to improve." Miss Thompson, teary-eyed, whispered back, "Teddy, you're wrong. You taught me how to live differently. I never knew how to teach until I met you." 30. Fighting with clubs. In an art class at a university, the professor showed the students a painting by the famous Spanish artist Goya, titled "Fighting with Clubs." The painting depicts two peasants fighting each other, each holding a rough club. One is raising his club to protect his face. The clear blue sky in the background gives no hint of what is about to happen next. It's unclear whether a storm is brewing or if the day will remain bright. The class was buzzing with excitement. Everyone was eager to share their thoughts. One student said the painting shows the human instinct for survival, struggling to preserve life. Another student mentioned the painting depicts the quest for happiness, as happiness is a struggle. Another analyzed, the painting represents the truth that humans are rational animals because only beasts bite each other, and here, rational beasts are fighting with clubs. The professor signaled for silence and asked the students to look at the painting again. The room quieted down. After a moment, he slowly said, "At first glance, this might seem like an ordinary painting. However, one detail reveals its entire meaning. The two peasants, fiercely intent on eliminating each other, are stuck in quicksand. Gusts of wind are blowing sand over them, burying them up to their knees, and they are unaware of it." The professor paused for a while before continuing. "Goya wants us to see that both peasants are about to die. They won't die from the blows they inflict on each other, but from the sand slowly burying them. Yet, instead of helping each other escape death, they act like wild beasts. They tear at each other." This painting by Goya somewhat reflects the predicament we all face. Instead of assisting each other to escape countless disasters like famine, earthquakes, terrorism, and wars, humans often fight and kill each other. The painting may not just be happening somewhere outside your lives, but might be unfolding daily in our interactions with those around us. The temptation to eliminate and defeat others may still be gnawing at each person. One of the best ways to defeat an enemy is to turn that enemy into a friend. Even in moments of extreme pressure and threats from all sides, let's stand together to protect each other, preserve life, and safeguard our planet. 31. BOBSY. A 26-year-old mother looked down at her son who was in the final stages of leukemia. Though her heart was filled with sorrow, she was resolutely determined. Like any parent, she deeply wished her child could grow up and achieve all his dreams. Now, that was no longer possible. Leukemia wouldn't let her son fulfill his dreams, but she still wanted to create a miracle for him. She took his hand and asked, "Bobsy, have you ever thought about what you want to be when you grow up? Do you dream about what you'll do in your life?" "Mom, I dream of becoming a firefighter when I grow up." The mother smiled. "Let's see if we can make that dream come true." That day, she went to the Phoenix, Arizona Fire Department. There she met firefighter Bob, whose heart was bigger than the city of Phoenix itself. She shared her son's dream and asked if her son could ride in a fire truck. Firefighter Bob said, "Look, we can do even more. If you can get him ready by 7 a.m. Wednesday, we'll make him an honorary firefighter for the whole day. He can come to the station, eat with us, and ride with us to all the fire calls. And if you give us his size, we'll make him a firefighter uniform just for him, complete with a real firefighter's helmet with the Phoenix Firefighter badge on it, a yellow plastic jacket like ours, and rubber boots. Everything will be ready quickly as it's all made right here in Phoenix. 3 days later, firefighter Bob picked up BOBSY, dressed him in the firefighter uniform, and took him from his hospital bed to the waiting fire truck. BOBSY sat in the back and helped steer the truck back to the station. He felt like he was in heaven. That day, there were 3 fire calls, and BOBSY participated in all of them. He rode in another fire truck, a medical vehicle, and even in the fire chief's vehicle. The local TV station filmed him. With his dream turned into reality, with all the love and care everyone showed him, BOBSY was deeply moved and so happy that he lived 3 months longer than all the doctors had predicted. One night, all signs of life in the boy suddenly dropped. The head nurse remembered the day BOBSY lived as a firefighter. She called the fire chief and asked if a firefighter in uniform could come to be with him during this time. The chief replied, "We'll be there in 5 minutes. Can you help us with one thing? When you hear the siren and see the lights from the fire truck coming, please announce over the hospital's radio that it's not a fire alarm, it's just the fire department coming to say goodbye to one of its finest members. And please open the window in the boy's room. Thank you." About 5 minutes later, the fire truck with its hook and ladder arrived at the hospital. They raised the ladder to BOBSY's third-floor window, where 14 male firefighters and 2 female firefighters climbed through into BOBSY's room. With his mother's permission, they hugged him and told him how much they loved him. With his last breath, BOBSY looked up at the chief and asked, "So, am I really a firefighter now?" "Yes, you are really a firefighter," the chief replied. With those words, BOBSY smiled and closed his eyes forever. 32. The boy who waited for letters. Back when I was a teacher at an all-boys high school, there was a student named Bob who was different from the others because he never received any letters. Yet every afternoon, he would be the first to rush to the mail cubbies, eagerly looking into his until all the mail was distributed before leaving. It wasn't that his family forgot about him. His boarding and pocket money were sent regularly on time. In June, the principal received a letter requesting that Bob be allowed to go to summer camp. It turned out that his father's secretary took care of all these details for him. However, his parents never wrote him any letters. When he confided in me that his parents had separated, I understood why. Poor Bob, he continued to wait hopelessly for mail. I often discussed his sad situation with a colleague, Mr. Joe Hargrove, who said, "If he doesn't get any letters soon, I'm worried it might really affect him negatively." Then, Bob's closest friend, Laurent, who came from a loving family that wrote to him weekly, came up with an idea. One day, seeing Bob sadly looking at a stack of his letters, Laurent suggested, "Bob, come to my room. I'll read one of my mom's letters to you." Shortly after, I saw them sitting together, discussing the letter. The next day, I noticed that during mail distribution, Bob not only checked his own cubby, but also Laurent's. Bob asked him, "Did you get another letter from your mom?" "No, today it's from my sister." Then Bob asked another friend, "Do you have a letter from your mom?" "Yes." "Can I read it with you?" "Sure. Let me read it out loud." From that day on, Bob enjoyed reading his friends' letters. The boys around him would ask, "Hey Bob, want to read a letter from my mom today?" The boys could sometimes seem harsh, but none of them ever mocked or made fun of Bob. One day, Bob casually asked Laurent, "Do we have any mail today? Isn't that sweet? They deserved lots of candy and toys for that." Laurent smiled and replied without hesitation, "Yes, today we have one." This prompted Mr. Joe Hargrove to take action. After meeting Bob's mother several times, he decided to try something. One day he came to me with 6 typed letters and 6 addressed envelopes ready to mail. He said, "Look, I'll send these to Mrs. Lanou. She just needs to sign Mom and drop one in the mail each week." I read the letters, which were very well written. Soon after, Bob was again eagerly waiting at the mail cubbies, but now he was more interested in Laurent's cubby. Suddenly, the mail distributor shouted, "Hey Bob, you've got mail, you've got mail." Bob gently raised his hands like an angel in prayer to receive the letter. He said, as if in disbelief, "Oh, it's addressed to me." Then he shouted, "Aha, I've got mail, I've got mail. Anyone want to read my letter?" The others were also excited, shouting together, "Yes, yes, Bob, read your letter out loud." The mail distribution paused for a moment. They lifted Bob onto a table and everyone gathered around. Bob hesitantly read, "My dear son." Then, looking up, he said, "I can't read it quickly." Laurent reassured him, "That's okay, Bob. Take it slow. It's better that way. Reading slowly helps you understand every word." And Bob slowly read the letter, the words as tender as any a mother would write to her son. In June, during the award ceremony, I saw Bob's mom attend. I wasn't surprised because after sending all the letters Mr. Joe had prepared, she started writing to Bob herself. It was nothing short of a miracle. Bob showed me the letter she had sent to announce her attendance. After the awards, she pulled me aside and asked, "How do you like the letters I wrote to Bob?" "They were wonderful," she continued somewhat hesitantly. "I'd like you to tell Bob about me." My husband and I are getting along better now, and we plan to have Bob come home for the summer, and we'll try to understand him better. "Don't worry, I'll do everything I can to help," I assured her. Need I say that no job has brought me more joy than this one? 33. The Will. One day I found a locked metal box on top of a cabinet. Dad said it contained Grandpa's will, detailing what he left for me when he returned to the earth. This made me think about what I would leave behind for my loved ones if I had to go far away, forever. So, I decided to write my own will. I found a lockable box in which I put my will and all my worldly possessions. My first will, written when I was 8 years old, was very short since I didn't own much. I left behind for my dad a photo of him holding me with a big smile, for my mom a picture of her comforting me outside a church, for my 2 younger brothers brand new toy cars I had fought to get, for Grandpa a walking stick I found in a storeroom, and for my best friend a fabric hat. As I grew up, no matter what, I always came home every New Year's Eve, sat by the window looking at the dark, smooth sky of the night, and wrote. Each year, as I traveled more with friends and for work, I collected more items. A comb from Hatien, dried magnolia buds still fragrant from a night by the Tien River, an ordinary seashell from NHA Trang, a piece of rock from non-Nuoc stonemasons. Each item reminded me of people I had met and marked my existence and love for those who had come and gone in my life. Every year, the box filled up with seemingly worthless things like a dried seed pod or an unshed cicada shell, so much so that I had to get a bigger box. When Grandpa passed away, Dad opened the box and read the will. All Grandpa left was his land, divided equally among everyone, land for fruit trees, yams, and rice. He left me his bookcase and a small triangular piece of land next to the fields he had worked all his life. He wrote that it was enough land for me to grow tomatoes and spinach, with all his love. He once said that, with even a tiny piece of land, no one could ever starve. I've stood on that piece of land many times, crying. As time passed, I realized life was short and uncertain. I understood it was better to show my love for others now rather than leave it in objects that might disappoint them later. It saddened me to think that I should have given my brothers those toy cars when it would have brought them joy, instead of keeping them for years. From then on, I stopped writing wills, picking up beautiful objects and giving them away immediately when I had the chance. To this day, I still keep my now empty box and Grandpa's 2-page will because I know it still holds something he left me, the love I have for everyone I meet and for life itself.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
34. Noodles and life. My mom was heartbroken when I was born, and she cried so much watching me grow up every day. Deep down, she wanted me to stay a little kid forever, always in her arms. But she knew, even as I grew, my soul wouldn't grow much at all. When I was little, I didn't notice my clumsy walk. It just hurt a lot. Watching me try to walk made my mom cry, even as she smiled and encouraged me to keep going. Despite my legs being crooked, she wanted me to understand the deeper meaning, but my young mind was limited in understanding. But don't worry, Mom, my heart ached seeing you cry. I love you the most and you love me the most. As I got older, not much changed. I still lived with my mom. Everything at home felt the same, and I wondered why other houses looked bigger. After asking my mom once, I never asked again because it made her cry. She asked if I preferred a big house or a small one, and offered to buy or cook whatever I wanted. Why did she cry when giving? It wasn't like before. Naively, I asked, and naively, I noticed the differences. Our moms, their hair, their hands. Our mom wakes up early and works hard. Their moms stay home. But all moms love their children, right? As a child, my mom took care of me, her hair still black. As an adult, I took care of her now that her hair had turned white. I understood that, but now what? My crooked legs, my crooked hands. What now? From a big house nearby, a song played echoing, "Poor bare hands." It resonated with me. I felt so much love for my mom. Life isn't a dead end. I still have value. When Mom was sick, I hurried to bring her porridge. Mom always said I was silly, but knew what she needed. Where I live, people are used to me. No one bothers or hurts me because everyone feels for those who are innocent. That time I brought porridge, people realized I was still useful. I could work and earn. From then on, I became a waiter serving noodles at a nearby stall. Serving noodles made me happy, made my mom happy, made her hair a little less white, and eased her sighs when she heard the song. Old Mom like a ripe banana on the tree. The wind blows, Mom falls, and I'm left alone. Being an orphan is hard, oh so hard. Being an orphan is tough, but everyone knew how tough it was for me. Now, every day, my hands and feet are happy. The bowl of noodles I carry never tilts, even though people watch, worried it might spill. Serving noodles makes the diners happy, and I enjoy it too. It's supply and demand, and we both enjoy it. So, I live happily serving noodles. But one rainy day, a kid waiting for his noodles asked, "Uncle, will you serve noodles your whole life?" If his mom were there, she'd probably say, "Why ask him that? Just eat." But since he was alone, he got a hard-to-understand answer from me. Noodles are life. Exactly. Noodles never die, never fear unemployment, never fear being forgotten. If not today, then tomorrow. Noodles don't disappear, they are a part of living. I chose noodles as my life, a symbol of undying effort, working hard every day, serving with my hands, walking on my legs, thinking hard to keep the bowl steady. Isn't that commendable, respectable, deserving of something? I've lived my life fully with noodles, more than ever, and Mom is happy seeing it. She can rest assured that I've chosen my path, a path not many understand. Sometime when you eat noodles, remember a guy like me. Being human is hard. Choosing a life is even harder. Once chosen, we must live it passionately, making our lives meaningful in some way. We think we have enough, but sometimes we don't know how to live comfortably. As for me, choosing noodles as life, though not perfect, I've lived comfortably within my imperfections. Being able to run towards tomorrow is a joy not many of us can achieve. 36. The Rose Seller. She looked down at her basket of roses, only 5 left. She usually sells sticky rice during holidays, but today she's also selling roses, which brings in more money. In the morning, the price for a single rose shot up to 20,000 VND, but it fell as the day went on. It has been dusk for a while. She would sell the remaining 5 roses for just 2,000 VND each, just to clear them out. She kept sprinkling water on the roses to keep them fresh. She has always cared for her flowers, but never for herself, not since she got married. Her husband was a coarse man, drunk by day and gambler by night. After their divorce, she took her 2 children back to her mother's home and worked hard to support them as they were growing up. Watching young women on motorcycles or walking with their lovers, their faces as fresh as the flowers they held, she felt a deep, profound sadness. She felt a lump in her throat and a pain in her heart, and she sighed deeply. "Hey, how much for these roses?" 5 for 5,000. A man about her age pulled up next to her on a shiny motorbike. His voice was slightly slurred. "Where's your husband that you're still out here selling?" She was hesitant but polite. "How many would you like?" "I'll take them all. Here's 20,000 VND. Keep the change. It's Women's Day after all. We should be courteous to women." She clumsily wrapped the 5 roses in a neatly cut, thin white piece of paper shaped like flower branches. She took the money and handed him the bouquet. He handed it back to her. "Here, for you. Go home early to your family today. Go straight home. No more selling. I've bought these flowers. If you keep selling them, I'll want my money back." "Just take it home to your wife." She suddenly felt shy. "My wife has had hers since early today." With that, he revved his engine and drove off. Holding the bouquet, she treated it as if it had never belonged to her until now. Gently, she placed the flowers in a vase on her family altar. Her daughter asked, "Mom, do you have extra flowers?" "No, someone gave them to me." Looking out into the empty, quiet alley, she thought of the bustling traffic on the streets. She felt truly happy. Amidst the hustle of city life, someone had thought of her, giving her a bouquet of roses. Even if it was a gesture influenced by alcohol, it brought her great joy, a late joy in a woman's life as the evening of her years approached. 37. Brighter tomorrows. Leaves turn from green to yellow, and flowers bloom only to wither. Watching dry leaves and faded flowers fall to the ground, you might think they are gone forever. But as seasons change, new blossoms appear, and bare branches sprout fresh leaves. Lonely paths burst into color with vibrant flowers. What was lost yesterday is restored. Doesn't this make you feel like nothing is missing in the world? It's the cycle of life and decay that enriches the soil, harboring strength. From the decay comes the renewal of spring, bringing bright new beginnings. Within millions of fresh buds and blossoms, in the laughter of children, aren't we celebrating the lives of those who have passed? Without the old passing, how would the new arrive? Birth moves towards death, and death fuels new life. In the ever-changing universe, we may not live forever, but we can achieve a kind of eternal presence. Tomorrow. No matter how memorable today is, tomorrow will come relentlessly, replacing it whether we resist or accept, survive or perish. Tomorrow quickly becomes today, then yesterday, fading into the past. Tomorrow is unknown, a series of question marks that push us forward another day, older yet uncertain what we'll gain or lose. Tomorrow is challenging, demanding work, thought, and struggle. Tomorrow is fragile, like human happiness, vulnerable to illness and suffering. Tomorrow is like a blank page. We can leave it empty, scribble a few lines, or turn it into a masterpiece filled with beautiful colors and profound emotions. Thus, tomorrow depends on our creativity. For lovers, it might be a beautiful chapter. For the hard-working farmer, it could be a bountiful harvest. Even if a great person passes tomorrow, it's not a defeat by tomorrow, but their legacy that makes tomorrow memorable. Don't wait for tomorrow to come to us. Let's walk towards it. By actively building our futures, we can create our own truly beautiful tomorrows.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
38. 2 bowls of beef noodles. On a chilly spring afternoon, 2 special guests appeared at the front of a small diner, a father and his son. The father was blind, and his son, a young man of about 18 or 19, dressed simply and showing signs of poverty, carefully guided him. The son's demeanor suggested he was a student, still in school. The son approached me and said loudly, "2 bowls of beef noodles, please." As I was about to write up the order, he gestured towards me to stop, smiled apologetically, and pointed to the price list on the wall behind me, indicating that he only needed 1 bowl with beef and the other just with some scallions sprinkled on top. At first, I was startled, but then I realized his intention. He had loudly ordered 2 beef bowls so his father would hear, even though they couldn't afford both, and he didn't want his father to know. I smiled back at him, acknowledging the situation. The kitchen quickly served 2 steaming bowls. The son carefully placed the beef noodle bowl in front of his father and tenderly warned him, "Dad, the noodles are ready. Please be careful, it's hot." He then took the plain noodle bowl for himself. The father didn't start eating immediately. He fumbled with his chopsticks in the bowl. Eventually, he picked up a piece of beef and quickly placed it into his son's bowl, urging him to eat more to stay strong for his upcoming graduation exams, hoping he would succeed and contribute to society. Despite the father's blurred vision, his face lit up with a warm smile. Remarkably, the son didn't stop him but quietly accepted the piece of beef and silently transferred it back to his father's bowl. This back and forth continued, making it seem as if the beef in the father's bowl was endless. "This place is really kind. So much meat in 1 bowl," the father remarked emotionally. I stood beside them, sweating, as there were only a few small pieces of meat in the bowl. The son quickly added, "Eat up, Dad. This bowl is so full. I don't know where to put it all." "Yes, eat up. These beef noodles are quite nourishing," I added. Their actions and words deeply moved us. By then, the diner's owner stood silently beside me, watching the two. Just then, the chef brought over a freshly cut plate of beef, and the owner indicated that it was for the father and son. The son, surprised, checked if there was a mix-up as they hadn't ordered it. The owner smiled and explained that it was the diner's anniversary, and the plate was a gift for the customers. The son smiled and didn't ask further. He added a few more pieces of beef to his father's bowl and then packed the rest in a plastic bag. We remained silent until they finished their meal and watched as they left the diner. When the chef came to clear the table, he softly exclaimed upon discovering a few bills under the son's bowl, exactly the price of a plate of beef as listed on the menu. At that moment, neither I, the owner, nor the chef said anything. We just sighed deeply, each lost in our own thoughts. 39. What I want to know. I don't care how you make a living. I just want to know what you crave and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's desire. I don't care how old you are. I just want to know if you will risk looking foolish for love, for your dreams, and for the adventure of being alive. I don't need to know what's fashionable to your dreams. I just want to know if you have faced the agony of life's deceit or if you have closed yourself off from another pain out of fear. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, and dance wildly without hesitation, being carried away by passion, without worrying about being cautious, practical, or remembering human limits. I don't care if your stories are true, I just want to know if you can disappoint others to be true to yourself. Can you bear the accusations of betrayal and not betray your own soul? Can you be trustworthy by being honest? I want to know if you can see beauty every day, even when it's not pretty, and if you can source your life from God's presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of a lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. I want to know if you can get up after a night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done for the children. I don't care who you are or how you came to be here. I just want to know if you will stand in the fire with me and not shrink back. And I don't care where you went to school, what you've studied, or who you know. I just want to know if you can be alone with yourself and truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. 40. The superhero family. I think my family is such a quirky superhero family. Want to know why? Because no matter how tired my dad is in the evening, he always manages to make 3 cups of coffee in the morning, one for him, one for Mom, and one for me. Then he brings each of us our cup with a smile to start the day, because my mom always gets up at 5 a.m. to prepare breakfast for us. So, I always go to school after a hearty meal and a cup of coffee, because my dad always greets me with a gentle kiss on my head whenever he comes home. He does this every single time, because my mom can be quite irritable to the point where even I can't handle it. I don't know if it's because we often butt heads or if it's the love Dad has for her that makes him never complain, because my mom likes to cook several dishes in one day, which means instead of eating something simple, she uses her brief morning hours on weekdays to cook very complex and elaborate dishes. Yet, on a leisurely Sunday morning, we all eat very simply. I don't understand it either, and she gets really annoyed when there's too much to do and still can't finish everything, while Dad just reads the newspaper. That's why Dad often helps out in the kitchen before starting his own work. Because my dad was in the military for 15 years, enduring countless hardships, but somehow he always talks about it humorously, making everyone burst into laughter. He often tells these stories during and after meals, which sometimes annoys my mom because he just keeps talking and won't go take a nap. Because my mom suffers from joint pain and neck pain. Yet despite his own fatigue, my dad can sit and massage her for a whole hour instead of using a massage machine. And vice versa for my mom. Because my mom can handle the housework for a large family of 10, housework is not as simple as the short name suggests, and still manages to care for orphanages, visit temples, help relatives in need, and simultaneously take care of feeding, bathing, and cleaning the cages of 3 birds. For all these reasons and many more that I can't even remember now, I call my family a quirky superhero family. I bet your family is pretty special too, right? 41. Growing Lessons, a Garden of Life and Wisdom. Until I was 8, I thought Sunday was called Sunday because people spent it outdoors. I believe this because I always spent Sundays in the garden with my grandma Nana. I loved the squash plants the most, with their tiny, delicate tendrils clinging to the trellis like little fingers holding on tight. They seemed so small and fragile. I would sit on the dirt watching them, feeling like they needed me. Meanwhile, Mom would be across the way digging with her garden spade, watching the tomato plants just as intently. "Mom, should I pick off these little yellow flowers?" I asked her one day. "Why would you do that, honey?" she gently replied. "I think they attract bugs that might eat the plant," I said. Mom chuckled. "No, those flowers will soon turn into squash, sweetie." "Really?" I asked. "Just wait and see. You'll quickly find that small things can become wonderful. Remember that, she advised. Small things can become wonderful, I repeated. That's right, Mom confirmed. Every Sunday, I checked on the squash plants, and over time, I saw more and more squash growing. Mom, do you think there are so many squashes because I keep an eye on them? I asked. Exactly. When you pay attention to something, it thrives. Remember that, she responded. When you pay attention to something, it thrives, I echoed. That's right, she said. I watched the squash plants even more after that. I picked off the dead leaves, and when the tiny tendrils couldn't reach the trellis, I moved them closer. Mom did the same with the tomatoes. But one Sunday, I saw Mom cutting off a branch, and I gasped, covering my mouth. Oh, why are you doing that? This plant isn't strong enough to support both branches with fruit, so I need to remove one to let the other thrive, sweetheart, she explained. Oh, you'll have to make similar decisions in the future. What do you mean, Mom? Will something be cut off? Mom laughed. Not exactly, but you'll have to make decisions when you can't keep everything. I'll remember that. Over the next few months, I visited the garden weekly to check on the squash, and I was proud to see more and more fruit. But one day, when no new squashes appeared and a few weeks later, there were none at all. Mom, what's happening? I don't see them growing anymore, I nearly cried. That's how it is, sweetheart. Everything grows until it doesn't. Nothing lasts forever. But I always took care of them. True, but some things must end for new things to begin. Is there something I should remember then, Mom? Yes, seasons will change, but new things will replace what's lost. I'll remember that. I continued to help Mom care for the other plants in the garden, but one day, I admitted, I really miss the squash plants, Mom. I know, dear. I was thinking, what if we asked Dad to build a greenhouse? We could grow squash all year. I'm not sure. Maybe we should wait for its season. Or we could try. I'll ask Dad, okay? That's fine. Dad agreed. And the next week we got a ready-made greenhouse. Best of all, it had netting all over. This is the perfect house for the squash, I said. And for the tomatoes too, Mom added. We planted squash on one side and tomatoes on the other. A few weeks later, the squash plants were doing better than ever, and so were the tomatoes. When they fruited, we realized the greenhouse was ideal. Look, Mom, I have a small squash and hundreds of flowers. They're doing better than ever. What a great idea, my love, Mom squeezed my hand. Mom, I think you should remember this, I said. What's that? There's always a way if you really want to do something. Mom turned to look at me, tears in her eyes. She smiled more brightly than ever and squeezed my hand again. Thank you, sweetheart. I will remember that.
Hey, everyone. Your comments truly matter, offering insights and motivation to others and uplifting our creative team at Lighthouse of Wisdom channel. Sharing your thoughts and experiences enriches our community. So, let's get the conversation started below and help illuminate our path with your wisdom.